Keep this down, hanging out somewhere. Alright. Alright, first we'll have you introduce yourself.
I'm Heather Branning.
And you were mentioning your involvement with this Masters.
Yeah, so my master's degree. So I was going to start from my original inspiration, which is when I was 14. I wrote down this piece of paper all these things that I wanted to do when I grew up.
Yeah.
And they were like, robotics engineer for NASA, dolphin communication expert, all of these things. But then I looked at the list and I was like, what do I want out of life? And what I wanted out of life was to make the biggest positive change in the world. So I looked at that list and cut out the things that I didn't think would be, that were interesting things, but that I didn't think would really affect a lot of positive change in the world.
Okay.
Or at least enough.
Can I write while you're talking?
Sure.
Okay. Perfect. All right.
And so I narrowed it down to teacher and environmental policy maker.
Okay.
So I started out college studying the political economy of the environment in South Asia.
Okay. Can you say that one more time?
The political economy of the environment in South Asia. Because I thought India was a really interesting place because they'd only liberalized their economy in 1991, and so you could see
relatively recent.
The different effects of that.
Yes.
And also, there was that room for change because it was sort of an emerging economy. People in this country I found were too stuck in how things have always been, which isn't how things have always been, but there's just that mindset.
Yeah.
So there was more fluidity. And there was lots of interesting activists who had inspired me, like Arundhati Roy and Vandana Shiva. So they had already inspired me a lot. So I was looking at the economic issues surrounding agriculture in India, and then I was working on a farm in India that was doing sort of natural farming and things like that. And looking at people like Paul Krugman, who serves as sort of Cassandra,
I don't know.
So Cassandra is the prophet who no one listens to. So she's prescient, but no one actually listens to anything she says. That's sort of her curse. So Paul Krugman is always, telling people, hey guys, this is going to happen, and no one listens to him. And so I don't know how much change he affects. He's sort of preaching to the choir. So we have to change the choir, basically, and broaden it. So then
changing the choir requires a lot of effort.
So then I switched to doing teaching because cultural paradigm shift sort of starts with teachers, because those were the people who had affected me the most. Teachers in summer camps had affected me and my worldview. So then I switched over to cognitive science and pedagogy. Because I thought it was important to use the science of how we learn in order to teach. And so I did that, and that was what my undergraduate thesis was on. And then I was a teacher for several years. But I was stress testing education. So,
in what ways?
So I worked at lots of different kinds of schools, and also sort of educate schools. So I worked at a school for kids who dropped out of high school. I worked at a school for kids in the villages of India. I worked for kids, school for kids in the slums of India. I worked for sort of a well-off public school, and I worked at a preschool that was doing sort of alternative teaching techniques. So I tried all of these different things, and there still seemed to be something broken about education. So as a classroom teacher, I was still forcing these kids to do it, and I was still like, come on guys, have fun with me, but I was still torturing them. I could see that they weren't having fun, and I could see that they were being tortured, and I'm like, that is not what I want to be doing. I'm not trying to torture these kids, I'm trying to inspire them. So going back to my sort of psychology roots and cognitive science roots, I was I started examining motivation. And so the thing with being in school is, you have to be there. Regardless of, whether you can choose to participate in a particular classroom activity, you have to be there. And so you can't make a choice to come to school. And that's really important as far as motivation.
Yes.
Because you're much more motivated to do things that you feel like you've
Have
really
some
chosen
agency
to do.
over. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought about it and I was like, well, where are people really excited to do hard work and to think a lot? Because that's what I want. I want to teach people how to think and how to reason.
Yeah.
So, games was the answer. So people spend a lot of time thinking and reasoning in games, and they do it voluntarily, and they're really happy and enjoy it.
Okay. Games.
So
Got it.
then, in my master's program, we were looking at issues in the world, and I chose to tackle climate change. And the solution to climate change was to build community through games. And so climate change is somewhat affected by consumerism, which is somewhat caused by empty self, which is somewhat caused by lack of community, which could be remedied by games that taught people how to be more compassionate. So,
Games that teach people to be more compassionate. Do you have an example? That sounds fantastic.
An example of a way games do that is one is just team building, for example. That's one way to create community and compassion through team building. Another thing is strikes at sort of operant conditioning techniques, but in a game, when you have a problem, and if it's a violent game, your response to the problem is aggressive. So you're training yourself that when there's a problem, you should
destroy
have an aggressive response. So if you had a game that when there was a problem, you had a pro-social response, that would be training you to have a pro-social response. And if you have that in different situations, if it's only in one game, it doesn't help. But if it's in games, in different games or in different situations in your life, then you're mapping that across the domains, and that your brain interprets that as a usable piece of knowledge and a usable
in the real world.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. Do you have an example of that on a small scale of something that we could apply to something that a child could practice tomorrow and then like apply to their lives in a sense that like in their family lives or in friendships or not necessarily with war or these dangerous things?
I can tell you, so when I was in like 4th grade, our teacher gave us this arm wrestling competition. And he's like, so you have 2 minutes and arm wrestle, and for each win, the person who wins gets 1 Hershey's Kiss.
Okay.
And so everyone was like, trying to win to get the Hershey's Kiss. And then I was like, hey, wait. Look. And I just like pushed my partner's hand down. And I was like, wait, just don't do anything. Look. And then she pushed mine down. And then I pushed hers down. And she pushed mine down. And so we each got a whole bunch of Hershey's Kisses. And so that was the lesson that he was trying to teach us. And so that's an example of something that happened in my childhood that I thought was really profound.
Excellent. Win-win situation. Excellent. Right. And so that led to your interest in writing about, how to have games that fostered community.
Yeah, and specifically looking at through compassion. So through teaching compassion, how can you foster community?
Yes. And that's what we'll read about and learn more about soon.
Yeah.
Excellent. Brilliant. Thanks so much. Fantastic.